This is Candid Conversations with Dr. Mayfield, a podcast that resources families and friends with tools to have important conversations about mental and emotional health. This show is sponsored by Mayfield Counseling Centers, helping you find clarity, hope, and purpose. Here's your host, Trevor Sheeran.
Thank you for joining us on Candid Conversations. I am Trevor Sheeran, joined as always by Dr. Mark Mayfield.
Hey guys.
And both of us are kind of looking forward to today's topic because it's sort of, our chance to speak out,
right?
and to validate ourselves.
This is more about us today than it is about you. So I'm sorry.
Thanks for joining us.
You might get a kick out of it though.
We're talking about what it takes to be a therapist. And the reason that we're talking about it.
Run away.
Yeah, seriously. The reason we're talking about it is because I think I really enjoy hearing stories about like what it takes to be a doctor or a nurse or even a crane operator. Like those stories are pretty interesting.
Doctor, nurse, crane operator.
Okay. But I think it says something about the time investment and the skills that person has.
Well, I think it's good education too, because when I'm sure you have too, when we've talked around and people don't understand the difference between a psychologist, counselor, social worker, and registered psychotherapist.
Right.
There was a bit of sarcasm there. We can talk about that later.
Slightly. We'll get there.
But I think educating people too on what it takes. Like we didn't just wake up one morning and say, hey, I think I'm going to be a counselor.
Put a shingle up on a door and start charging people $100.
You and I joke, but this has probably been one of the hardest processes of our lives, and we both attempted suicide.
Yeah, so, I know, right?
Not to joke about that too. I mean,
joking about it immediately after an episode.
On suicide.
Forgive us.
Sorry. We have to have an interesting sense of humor sometimes.
Well, and I think that comes with it. Working maybe a little backwards, if you ever meet a police officer, especially when they're on the beat, like in their uniform.
Did you just say on the beat? Is that still like the lingo?
Sure.
Okay.
For this episode.
Okay. Sounds good.
But they tend to have a very cynical perspective on the world and life. And some of that is a defense mechanism against a lot of the trauma, secondary trauma and the direct trauma that they're experiencing. We experience some similar traumas, secondary traumas for sure.
Take life being in danger out of the picture.
Yeah.
But we do. We deal with people's deepest, darkest hurts.
And we don't have the opportunity to harden and be cynical, because cynicism is really just a hardening against that. We have to remain soft and empathetic while still being strong. And so I think our humor is a little bit different because it maybe has a little bit more bite to it.
A little sarcasm.
A little bit more sarcasm, but it's not necessarily cynical because...
No, you can't be a cynical counselor because you're going to cause more harm.
Yeah, and so and we really, as counselors, we are the tool that we're working with. We're the tool of the craft. And so a lot of therapists will take a good amount of consideration. Some are still working on it. I would consider myself to be in the latter. How do we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of clients? Because that's important.
And it's a moving target.
Yeah,
right?
Always.
I had somebody speak some stuff over me the other day that says that I need to make sure that I take time for myself because I am the tool that is being poured out or being used. And we don't think of it that way. But let's back up even further and talk about this idea of what does it take to become a counselor? Because, I have my PhD in counselor education, and I'll talk through all of that. But just to become a master's level licensed professional counselor, let's start from the beginning. You're in the midst of it. So the sarcasm that's coming from Trevor as he talks about this, just take it with a grain of salt because he's got 9 months left and he graduates, but the 9 months that he's got is going to be hard.
We had I started setting up this morning at 7 a.m. I had a class that ended at 10 last night, and I started at 7 a.m. yesterday. So
the professor should have known a little bit better, to watch the room there.
Yeah.
But so to become a licensed professional counselor in the United States, it takes 60 credit hours. So 60 post-bachelor.
Yeah, you have to get a bachelor's first.
And then a master's degree and 60 credit hours. And that typically translates into about 2.5 years of coursework. But that's just the beginning.
Yeah, that doesn't.
So do you want to talk about the professional practice that we have to do as well?
Yeah. So not only does a budding therapist like myself have to go through master's level courses.
Insert sarcasm there.
Yeah, insert sarcasm flag everywhere. But we are also required to do what's called practicum and internship, and
so 700 total hours of professional practice,
which on a weekly basis right now looks like 20 hours of free work to my site.
I was going to say, did you get paid?
No,
are you getting paid? No.
I do not get paid, but I am working 20 hours at my site for internship, seeing clients, while also working here at Mayfield Counseling Centers and also taking coursework.
Yes.
And that is standard. I mean, there's the path that you can take a 3-year track instead of a 2.5-year track. And that allows you to lower the coursework that you're doing while doing internship. But ultimately, it kind of all boils down to the same amount of busyness.
And most master's programs, we would say, because I teach in a master's program as well, every hour in class translates to an hour of homework outside of it. So
Easily.
When I teach similarly. I teach, like I'm teaching tomorrow night, psychopharmacology, so the understanding and study of how drugs affect the physiology. And it's a 2-hour class in seat, so 6 to 8 o'clock. And I expect that they'll have 2 to 4 hours of homework throughout the week. So add that then to 20 hours of internship and maybe taking 2 classes. But also, these are not just classes. These are not just like widgets where we're learning to plug in numbers so that we can produce, a square. This is like learning about emotions and mental health and brain science and crisis and trauma and
a lot of practical self-learning. Like the first year of at least my master's and a lot of
mine
other
too.
Masters is you have to dive into some of your own stuff to make sure that it's covered, and you're not going to bring that into sessions and cause harm, because that's a big concern.
Well, because we talked about that, we're the tool.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we are the tool in the therapeutic sense. And so if we're not making sure that our stuff is, again, we tell people all the time, we're never going to work through our stuff completely. No. But if we're aware of our stuff and have that good awareness, but that's what the first year of the program really produces out of us, is that, are you aware of all your stuff?
Right.
Because we joke, so here comes this sense of humor again, but we joke that people in their right mind don't choose to become counselors because one, you've got to work through all your stuff first, and then you sit with people's stuff on a regular basis, and then you got to take care of yourself so that stuff doesn't come back up again.
Yeah.
And I mean,
there's so much involved, and this might be skipping ahead. Once you graduate from your master's,
not skipping ahead,
you have to do 2,000 hours
in Colorado. Other places it's 3 to 4.
Right. So in the state of Colorado, 2,000 hours of supervised training, which gets a little bit more complicated here. A lot of the times you have to pay for your supervision.
Unless you're at a community mental health center or here at Mayfield Counseling
And so that could mean that you're paying money for a weekly supervision hour on top of doing normal counseling, because that turns out to be about a 40-hour work week for 2.5 years before you can be officially licensed.
Before you can apply.
That
for your license.
Yes.
And before that, you actually have to take a test called the National Certified Counselor's Examination.
That out of my brain.
I'm sorry. We can do trauma therapy afterwards here.
Oh, gosh.
So the National Counselor Certified Certification Examination or whatever is the test you have to take to even apply for licensure, and you have to pass that at a certain level. And it's not the most fun test, but it's not an essay. It's more of that multiple choice, answer piece. But it's
find the best answer for how you would approach this situation.
So, and so I think it's like 150 questions or something like that.
I think
So
I have yet to do it, so I'm blocking all of this information.
And I've done it so long ago that I don't quite remember what it felt like. But then you can apply for licensure. But then what happens after licensure?
Then the supervision.
Right. So after you get licensed, you can.
After licensure,
you continue supervision. You should continue supervision, but you're required to do in the state of Colorado 40 continuing education credits every 2 years to even be allowed to be relicensed.
which means classes or seminars or trainings, all of that.
To keep up on it. Now, if you want to throw in a PhD, so it's basically so I did another 98 credits past master's degree, and some of that included my dissertation, but it was going deeper in clinical work and supervision work and teaching work and that kind of stuff. But then it was preparation for the dissertation. And so every PhD has to have a research study. And my study took 2.5 years and was a close to 250, 300 page report. And most, I'm really proud of this statistic. I think it's like 3 or 4% of those who start a PhD actually finish it.
Oof.
So I'm glad that I'm in that percentage. But it was because it was something that was really passionate for me or to me. But also we had to do a 700-hour internship and practicum again.
Which, I just want to highlight this. Tell me a little bit about your family and your life at that time when you were doing that level of internship.
I don't remember. No, I'm just kidding.
You blocked that out.
I blocked it out. I repressed that
memory.
memory. No, you had to make it work. And so I was working 40 hours a week. I was taking classes, and I was doing a 20-hour-a-week internship.
With how many kids?
2, I think at the time. Yeah, 2. Well, we started with 1, and then we had a kid in between that, so no sleep either.
So you had a newborn during
that piece. And it was, and I think my motto and the motto of my mentors and my supervisors at the university was, it's a season. Mm-hmm. And so if I can just plan out the next 3 months, I can make it. And the next 3 months, I can make it. But yeah, we don't, I think you can understand now, we don't just wake up one morning and go, I think being a counselor would be fun. We actually have, in a lot of ways, we have just as much clinical training, and it just looks different as, doctors and nurses and those kinds of things. Now their residencies are kind of like our internships, but their residencies are usually a year long, and they have to work on specialties and that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more focused.
Right.
But the rigor is very much the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of individuals in my own cohort that have dropped out or chosen to lengthen their time just because it's so much. And I really don't blame them at all. There are times when I'm in the situation and honestly, and I think this is an important thing to touch on a little bit, where I'm like, is it even worth it? Like all of this effort and then to not make a incredible living, because therapists don't make, they aren't millionaires or even close.
I think we look at TV shows like Frasier or other therapist shows where you see somebody living in a high-rise penthouse and that kind of stuff. And there's the assumption that when I pay my therapist $100 or $120, they pocket the whole thing. I wish. That would be nice. But no, you think about liability insurance, and you think about overhead, you think about taxes, you think about all this kind of stuff. So technically, if you pay your therapist $100 to see them, which is kind of the going rate in Colorado Springs for a licensed professional master's level therapist, they typically pocket $45 to $50.
Yep. And that's not I'm making $50 an hour.
No.
It's typically, maybe half or another hour is tacked onto a session with paperwork and
you don't
research
get paid for that.
and making sure that you're finding the right approaches. And so it's more work around each session. And so in the moments when I've been struggling with that, the finances have definitely been more discouraging because, everybody wants to graduate from a master's that you paid a lot of money for and make a lot of money. That's not ultimately the reason why I got into counseling.
No, but it's something we have to talk about.
Right? But the reason I got into counseling was this feeling that this is where I belong and this is what I was made for, and that at least for this season of my life, this is my calling.
Well, it's like teachers.
Yeah, totally.
You don't go to become a teacher because you want to get rich. Now, I think there is a commentary that needs to be had on those things, that we do need to be paying our counselors and our teachers more because we're dealing with, and our law enforcement, to be honest, because we're dealing with some of the toughest things. But I think as a therapist, that if you become established, you find your niche, and so Malcolm Gladwell talks about this idea of what it takes to become an expert in the field, and he says 10,000 hours. And so if you think about it, 10,000 hours is typically 10 years past graduation. And so to be patient in that. I finally hit my 10,000 hours like this summer, and I realized that, and I was freaking excited. But it's, okay, I've got my niche. Now I'm the expert. Now, not in a prideful, egotistical way, but I know what I'm talking about. And so, you might be able to charge a little bit more from a therapy, from a session fee standpoint, or, begin to write articles or books or go speak or teach at a university. So there's ways that you can diversify these things in the field, and it's all for the advancement of the field. But you think about it, in my opinion, the health of a counselor is determined by how many clients they see weekly. And I'd say that the health starts to decline if you see more than 30 or 32 a week, because that's a lot of people's stories that you're trying to keep track of and listen to and monitor your own self. But it's also really hard because you're then taking notes and you're doing research and all that kind of stuff. So it turns into maybe a 45 or 50 hour week. That's a lot. And so if you were to extrapolate 30 client hours a week times, let's say $50, it's a decent living, but it's not getting rich.
Right. So now that we've totally discouraged you from ever trying to be a therapist, why don't we talk about some of the reasons why?
I think realistically, it's good to have that conversation. And I don't try to scare my first year students out of becoming a counselor, but I'm like, what are your motives?
Right.
Because it's not about popularity. It's not about being known. It's not about making a lot of money. It's about caring for the souls, the minds of people. And to me, that is a huge honor. Like, I pinch myself on a regular basis going, I get to do this for a living.
Right.
But it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to discourage people out of it, but I want that realistic understanding. Yeah. So, but why? Well, you and I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit. It's our own stories that have propelled us into this, right? I mean, being bullied, beat up, made fun of, from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, maybe not 8th grade, as things change in 8th grade, but 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, and attempting suicide myself. And then finding counseling, finding my youth pastor, finding others that really sat with me and walked through. And I like that. Yeah. But also, in high school, I was the person that everybody came to dump their stuff on. And so it just seemed like a natural piece. And we talk a lot about this when we have our first year students. There's a difference between a natural helper and a skilled helper. A natural helper, our bent is listen and give advice and try to fix it. Yeah. A skilled helper, like we do, I tell my students this all the time, it's not our place to fix people and it's not our place to give advice. No. And I had one student once go, "Son, what are we doing?"
Right. My wife said the same thing.
But we're directing, we're guiding, we're sitting with, we're providing insight, we're confronting, we're challenging, we're...
In a lot of ways, we get to act like a mirror where the client comes in and their hair's all astray and maybe they've got a button undone on the shirt and one sleeve's not rolled all the way up, and it's not our role to go in and roll up the sleeve and comb the hair and all of that, but it is to kind of point out like, hey, did you notice that your sleeve isn't rolled all the way up? Or, hey, I noticed this strand of hair. Let me show you how, like, a good way to comb it that you can go and take home. And
well, for example, I was meeting with somebody, not in a counseling setting, but I was meeting with somebody, after one of my talks, and they're having some struggles with their kid, totally engrossed in online fantasy stuff and trying to find ways to engage them in different ways and that kind of stuff. And she goes, I'm just at a loss. I don't know what to do. And so I sat there for a second and I said, obviously it sounds like you're frustrated. So I reflected back on how she was feeling. And I said, have you ever thought about creating your own fantasy story with your child, but doing it in a notebook in paper? And you have the tagline, the storyline, you write 3 or 4 paragraphs and then put it down. And then she updates it with her storyline and come back and forth. And it gets her off the computer, but puts it in real life. And she looked at me, she's like, whoa, I never thought of that before. Well, it's not like I had this was a fantastic idea that I never. But it's that
you're not going to go and patent that idea.
No, but it's that person that they're so steeped in their stuff that they don't have a chance to think outside the box, and so it's our job to help provide that. And if it was a client, I'd say come back and report to me and how it was going. But I'm not going to ever see this person again.
Right.
But it's that giving them a chance to explore different perspectives and venues.
And you're able to do that. We're able to do that because we've been trained through our massive amount of time and training to really dive into what a person is sharing and to approach it in a way that is very skilled.
Teasing those things out.
Those things out. And so it's not something that you can just, here's the thing. It is something that you could choose to just do, pay $60, take a test, and put your name out there and
180.
say 180.
That's going away.
Now I'm a therapist. That's specific to Colorado.
It's called a registered psychotherapist. Yeah.
And it doesn't require very many requirements. Does it require a bachelor's?
A GED.
Yeah. So, and the reason why it's important to have somebody who is at least on the path of licensure is because they have supports in place for them to make sure that they don't cause harm or to accidentally do something that's going to damage the individual in the room or the relationship without repairing it. Because when you're diving into somebody's life, when somebody comes into the counseling room, they're offering themselves for exploration and welcoming you into their pain. And it's kind of like surgery where we're diving into some things that maybe have never been revealed to the world or aired out before. And there's a high likelihood that there could be a slip up of the knife and cause damage in one place that isn't being worked on, and that can just sit. And I know a lot of people who have gone to a therapist and had a terrible experience.
It's true.
And have sworn off of counseling because of that situation. And my encouragement is maybe try again.
Yep. Listen to the first episodes of our first season.
Yeah.
Don't judge us on how awkward it was, but just listen to the content.
Right. It was our first episode.
Yeah. But we talk about that, how to look for a therapist and what to find and stuff. But also call us. Let us know. Adam Smith, our inquiry coordinator, does a really good job of connecting you with somebody here, but also does a really good job of connecting with you somebody that's a good fit and it might not be here, which is really important too. But no, we don't take this lightly. And this is something that we take very seriously, but also it is our passion and our joy. And you need to find somebody that exudes that as well. So please reach out, contact at mayfieldcounseling.com or Candid at mayfieldcounseling.com.
Either one.
Or you can call us at 719-452-4803 and just pick Adam's brain or connect us with one of us and we can talk with you as well.
Thank you for joining us on this very self-motivated conversation.
Thank you for joining Candid Conversations. If you would like more information, you can email candid@mayfieldcounseling.com or call 719-452-4803.